So I'm Mia Blum. I'm the co-chair of the Commission on Sustainability, and my other co-chair is Miriam. I'll be taking the lead for the meeting this month, and will be just wanted to welcome everyone. This is a joint meeting that we have from time to time with the Planning Commission. We have an opportunity today to hear from all of the plans that the city currently has in place, many city efforts, and it's always great to come together as a joint body to hear what is going on together. So just want to have a moment to have members of either commission just say a quick welcome. If you are not able to be on camera, if you can just pop information in the chat, that would be helpful. Miriam, I'm going to just throw it over to you.
Hi, I'm Miriam Avens, the co-chair, and I'm really delighted to be doing a joint session today. It's been a while, and it's always fascinating how we hear the same information through different prisms, and I think we all learn a lot. So delighted to join space with you, delighted to be with so many people who are just coming to participate. So thanks.
I'm going to go just kind of the way that I see everyone. If you want to just come off camera as a commissioner and introduce yourself, that'd be great. I'm looking at Inez right now. If you want to say hello.
Hi, I'm Inez Robb, one of the sustainability commissioners, and I'm glad to be a part of this joint meeting session. It should be good and interesting. Thanks for inviting me, and hopefully I'll learn some stuff that I can share with community.
Jared?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jared Lyles. I'm a Sustainability Commissioner and looking forward to the joint meeting.
Bill?
Sorry, I tried logging back out and then but I'm at work and it auto loads our identity information, and I didn't want to miss 20 minutes of the meeting trying to figure out how to override that. But I'm Bill Joyner and I'm on the Sustainability Commission. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Bill. Lisa?
Hi, everyone. Lisa Ferretto, Sustainability Commission.
Okay, I think we're ready for the Planning Commission. I see Eric.
Hi there. Sorry, can you see me now? Eric Stevenson, Planning Commission. I think this is at least my second joint meeting that I've had the pleasure of participating in. It's always a pleasure to see a mix of familiar and new faces. So looking forward to the meeting and getting to work with everyone.
And this is where I might need a little bit of help. So it looks like there are not as many members of the Planning Commission on. They might pop in later. If I'm missing anyone, just pop on.
And I do want to mention that Sean will be joining us in a moment. He was so eager and ready for this that he went in person. So he's getting himself virtually here.
I ran through the participants list and I didn't see any other planning commissioners on the line. So I guess you're stuck with me for now.
It looks like Robin Allen is here from the Planning Commission.
Hello? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Robin Allen, Planning Commission.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, Eric. Be careful out there.
So we're joined today by many members of the team, whether it from the planning department, from the Office of Sustainability. I'm just going to throw it on over to Ava or Amy to give updates from the office.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mia. I hope everyone, well, thank you everyone for joining the call this evening. So first update is we released our annual 2022 sustainability report. I want to go ahead and share my screen to give folks a sense of exactly what's in the report. And we will also drop a link in the chat so that everyone can see, can visit it and see the report on your own time. All right, can everyone see the screen? All right, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just a high level overview, we provided updates on specific actions in the plan and sections that made significant progress. Under our community section, that included a 15-year lease that the Farm Alliance executed for the teaching farm, the Black Butterfly Farm. Under human made systems, we highlighted the state's Climate Solutions Now Act that aligned the state's carbon neutrality or net zero goals with the city's carbon neutrality goals to reach those goals by 2045. Under our climate and resilience successes and progress, the city committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Again, those carbon neutrality goals. And we also released our 2022 greenhouse gas inventory that reflected a 23% decline in emissions in comparison to 2007 baselines. For economy, there was millions of dollars invested in workforce development across the city, and nature in the city saw some really great successes with the development of Masonville Cove. Just to run through the report really quickly, again, each section, the report is broken down by the five sections of the plan that you will see here. So that includes community, human-made systems, climate and resilience. I'm sorry, yes?
I don't see anything on my screen.
Okay, Inez.
I also put a link in the chat.
Inez, can you try and click on the link in the chat? Are other people seeing the report on their screen?
Yes, I
I
can.
have, I have an old, I have an old computer, an old Mac, and it's not working for me.
Okay. Inez, we're gonna try and
All
email
I,
you the. We're gonna try and.
on my screen it says viewing.
Okay. What we're gonna try to do is email you a copy, the PDF of the plan. If you can't see it, because other folks are seeing it, and then Amy also dropped a link to it in the chat. But we'll make sure you get a copy for sure. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. And again, nature in the city, and then the final section, economy. This year, one of the things that we tried to do different was provide people an outlook of where we go from here in terms of climate action planning over 2023. So that includes the completion of our climate action plan as well as the disaster preparedness plan that will both of which will be updated this year. And hopefully you all were able to catch updates on the solid waste management plan that DPW, that update that DPW is also leading. We also highlighted some staffing matters and decided to communicate some of these successes that we've seen in climate and sustainability over the past year in a poem. And so if you get a chance, go check it out, read it, and see what's going on in the city. And we provided updates on all the actions that are listed in the plan so people can see exactly where each of those stand. Amy, did you have anything else to add?
No, I also wanted to point out that on the website, and I'll put a link also in the chat, the status of the actions from the plan, we only included in the annual report document the ones that advanced during 2022, but I also created a separate document that includes the status of every action in the plan. It was 4 pages just including the ones that had a status change, and it would have been made the annual report much longer to include all of them. So we also have a separate document that shows the status of each of the actions from the plan.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, Amy. And the second report is just a general update on the open house for the planning that we're working on. So our annual sustainability open house will take place on June 21st this year. It'll be on Morgan State University's campus at the Graves School of Business and Management. So that's 4200 Highland Road. And our theme this year is education and careers in sustainability. We are still looking for organizations to table at the event. If you, your organization, or you know of organizations that might be interested, please send them our way. We'll drop a link for organizations that can register for the event, as well as the URL for the general event registration on Eventbrite. We really hope to see folks there. And as a reminder to all of our commissioners, we really see this as a great in substantial opportunity for commissioners to engage with the work across the city and to inform some of the activities that we highlight and how we better engage and communicate around climate issues. So we hope to see you all there in June. And we will not be hosting a sustainability meeting next month because we will be hosting the open house. All right, so with that, I'll pass things back to Mia.
Thanks, Ava. I'm actually going to just kind of tee up what we're going to hear today. So we're going to hear from Valerie, who's going to talk a little bit about the Climate Action Plan, Aubrey, who's going to talk about the Disaster Preparedness Plan and Project, also known as the DP3, and Sarah to talk about the overall comprehensive plan. First up, we're going to hear from Valerie.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen, so just one moment, please. All right. All right, so thank you so much. I'm Valerie Roop. I am the Climate and Resilience Program Manager at the Office of Sustainability, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Climate Action Plan, where it stands and where it is going to be moving forward. So the first Climate Action Plan, just to review, was developed in 2012, so just over a decade ago. And it indicated a big step for prioritizing climate and resilience work in Baltimore City. The 2012 plan's framework included sections on energy savings and supply, land use and transportation, and growing a green city. However, this plan didn't significantly address equity and has not been as accessible and implementable as many stakeholders would have hoped. So to date, only about 25% of the identified actions have been taken. This means that the approach to the 2023 Climate Action Plan seeks to act on lessons learned from the previous plan's implementation. First, it prioritizes equity at each step of the process, from its outreach strategy to its implementation plan. It will include financial analysis so that we'll know what will cost the city to implement these aspects of the plan that are under its control. And it will consider co-benefits or community benefits that will result from each action. I'll talk a little bit more about the elements of the plan shortly, so some of the details will be covered there. Sorry, I'm trying to get the slides to advance. Sorry, I'm just one moment.
It can be a little bit laggy, I think.
Oh, okay, so I probably went a little over vigorous with that. Sorry about that. All right, so the 2023 Climate Action Plan will guide city actions and city community partnerships towards climate reduction and neutrality goals set forth by Mayor Scott in 2022, aimed at achieving 60% reduction in climate and greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. It will do so while employing strategies that will enhance sustainability, enhance co-benefits, address equity and climate justice, while seeking to build a healthier city now and in future generations. This will require approval from the Sustainability and Planning Commissions. So who's involved? And this is how the project has been structured. So we have a city team, of course, spearheaded by Office of Sustainability, that includes consultants, the primary consultant being AECOM, with a team of others involved. And then we've had throughout the process a technical advisory committee and a resident advisory committee. So those groups, the technical advisory committee as professionals and experts, from nonprofit universities, other city agencies, state agencies, and so forth, and from businesses that have been involved throughout the planning process. They help to connect the climate action plan work to other plans and priorities and provide insights and expertise about how the actions proposed in the plan may affect and be implemented by the city and its partners. Most recently, they met in April to provide feedback and recommendations on draft action items and to weigh in on potential implementation partners related to the draft actions. The resident advisory group has been engaged throughout the process as well. They provide topical and community expertise and local awareness. There are actually 2 members of the Sustainability Commission who serve on that group, as well as 2 youth. And then, of course, public engagement has been a huge part of this effort. It began in October 2022, and included surveys. There's been over 2,200 unique engagements, 200 emails, reaching out to 80 communities, over 200 people attending a workshop. We even had last month on Earth Day, we had a really great showing of folks coming out to a workshop that we had at the Baltimore Center. So there's been some lot of great work there. So as the slides are lagging, I will just take a moment and say, with the climate action plan, I'm going to be going through the process in just a moment once the slides catch up with me. All right. So we will need broad buy-in and collaboration to achieve the city's ambitious carbon neutrality goals. So this plan and the process will focus on integrating equity into all aspects of the process, the plan, and its implementation, developing a roadmap for the city to meet its greenhouse gas reduction targets, connecting to other community and city priorities to focus on implementable and impactful actions, and being accessible to all people living and working in Baltimore, so that not just government, but business, institutions, communities, and individuals can see the critical role they play in implementing the plan. Sorry, I'm lagging. I'll just start talking a little bit as it catches up. So a lot of progress has been made to date. The consultant team came on in fall 2022, and the sustainability team had already been working on outreach at that point, and with assistance from advisory councils. So you'll see that there's been some analysis done already, and some draft actions were developed with robust community input. So we've now put together with the consultants a list of 30 community actions and 15 municipal actions that will be vetted by them. We'll talk a little bit about that process in a moment. But in addition to the reviewing those goals and assessing them for feasibility, the consultants will also begin a fiscal impact analysis of key investments the city will need to make to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and to help the city understand both the costs and benefits of those investments in the city budget, as well as the benefits to the larger community. We'll soon also begin developing implementation roadmaps to define how key actions will be implemented, so the plan doesn't just sit on a shelf. Once that is done, a public comment period will occur. Of course, there'll be time for review, internal review, and preliminary review from the commissions as well at that point. And that will occur over the summer. And then we will have the plan completed by October and be bringing it to both the commissions for approval. So as I mentioned, the consultants are currently vetting actions that would be included in priorities in the action plan. So I'd like to give a little insight into how those actions are being vetted for inclusion in the plan. And this is very timely because this was something that Aubrey and I were just meeting with the consultants about directly before this meeting. So the evaluation and prioritization process will group actions into near, medium, and long-term priorities. In order to prioritize actions, the consultants will evaluate their greenhouse gas emission reduction potential, as well as their feasibility and their impact on certain community benefits. This process will provide a holistic, high-level understanding of each action, rather than just viewing it strictly through the emissions lens. We will evaluate the actions using a tool that the consultants are bringing on board, which is called Action Selection and Prioritization Tool, so ASAP for short. And ASAP allows users to evaluate actions for their impact on greenhouse gas, and then potential benefits and other feasibility. So in the case of this plan, the primary benefit will be the emissions reduction, but the community benefits will be, we'll also be looking at those community benefits and climate act that'll be generated from that. And then feasibility, how easy or difficult it will be to implement the action. This process helps the selection of priority actions by allowing users to compare the reference benefits and trade-offs for each action. And it's important to remember that ASAP is a decision-making support tool. It's not going to make the decisions itself. The final actions, of course, will be, presented to the city, and then decisions will be made from there. So then talk a little bit about the community benefits and feasibility criteria. So the ones that we've selected, we actually will be adding one onto this list that will show up in a moment when the slide progresses. But the ones that we're looking at are resilience, public health, economic prosperity, social cohesion, and savings to residents and businesses. So with that, we're just to note that equity is not included explicitly as one of those because it's the highest value. So it's being considered in all elements of the plan. It's really that filter. So we're working in a filter or system for that before it even gets to vetting. So a little more about the definitions. So with resilience, what it'll really be looking at is the capability to prepare for, adapt, withstand, and recover from climate change, hazards, and other stressors. Public health will consider the impact of life expectancy or incidence of diseases or deaths attributed to indoor or outdoor air pollution. Economic prosperity for individuals and businesses considers if the action will potentially help or hurt different people with economic positions. And then, of course, that relates a bit to the savings to residents and business. That's pretty self-explanatory by the name of that. And then, of course, social cohesion, which will be considering how actions taken when implementing the plan may strengthen social relationships, interactions, or ties. Then the feasibility criteria, we're really looking at a tiered system of what the city has the capacity to control, within administration, within, legislation, and so forth. But really looking to see what can be, filtering it through that feasibility as well. That will be strengthened by the financial analysis as well, which will be really looking at, what the cost to the city would be. So what's next? As the slides catch up, I'll just keep going. So, to review the next steps, we're looking at the action prioritization. As we mentioned, we're in the midst of that right now. So we'll really be looking at those different benefits and timings and, top actions for each section of the plan, being buildings, transportation, waste, and so on. Fiscal impact analysis will be working with the Baltimore City Department of Finance to estimate the cost to the city to implement the plan. And then the implementation roadmaps will be identifying key actions, benchmarks, and partners to achieve those goals. We'll have the draft plan. We'll have that out for internal review, input from the commissions, and for a public comment period. Then we'll go into finalize the design, get everything laid up and ready to go, bring it as the finalized version to the commissions for approval. And then we'll roll into awareness and education. So, that will be an ongoing process that we'll be working with the sub-cabinet and other partners and stakeholders on implementation. So, and as well as working with the broader public to ensure that they're aware of the plan and know about the steps they can take to help the city meet its carbon neutrality goals. All right. So anyone has any questions or any clarification I can provide?
This is Amy. Let me turn my video back on. Since we had several members of both the Planning Commission and Sustainability Commission join us a little bit late, we did want to pause and go through introductions for those folks. And I also realized I hadn't introduced myself. So I'm Amy Gilder-Basati. I am the Sustainability Manager with the Office of Sustainability. And I'll look through the list and call on folks. Alexandra, would you like to introduce yourself? If you're not able to be on camera or on mute, I'll keep going. We can always come back. Continuing down the list, Justin Williams with the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon. Well, it's Justin Williams. Sorry I'm late. I'm going between meetings and getting back to my office. Good to see everybody virtually.
Thanks for joining us. Let's see. Sean Davis?
Hi, sorry I was late. I actually thought we were in person at the planning department, so I showed up there and said, wow, I gotta be wrong, but great to see everybody. Look forward to. I'm sorry, I just signed on at the end of the climate action plan, so I look forward to participating more actively in the next discussions.
Stephanie Smith?
Hello all, Stephanie Smith, Sustainability Office, Department of Planning, and I know most of you all.
I think that's everyone that I was able to catch. If I missed anybody, please introduce yourself now.
I think I see Eric Stevenson from the planning
Hi,
committee.
I'm Ines Robb, Sustainability Commissioner.
And,
Yeah, we had an earlier round of introductions, but yeah, we could always.
Nope.
Okay. And then if we've wrapped up introductions, we wanted to open it to questions and comments from the commission members on the presentation from Valerie on the climate action plan. To start off, just if we wait until we've gone through all three, we might lose track of some good thoughts. So I wanted to open it up for questions.
Valerie, thanks for the presentation. Is there a very specific call to action that you have for either commission on the plan?
Not right now. Right now we're in the point that we're going through the actions and putting them, getting them prioritized, running them through the filters and so forth. There will be some coming because this summer we will have the public comment period and we will have time for review and so forth. So we will be, working with Eric and Amy to make sure that we get those plans out in draft form, the Word version to you early so we can go through that. And then of course, at that time during the public comment period, there'll be some outreach. So we'd love you to help amplify that or attend events and so forth as well. Right now, we're just at a little bit of a lag time because we just wrapped up community outreach and we're getting ready to get that plan formalized.
That's great. And then who from the commission is actually serving on this, on the
Resident Advisory Commission Council, it's Inez and Lisa.
And Ben's light check.
Oh, Ben, too. Sorry about that. Sorry.
Fantastic. So we should be looking for our emails for the next opportunity to engage. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Fantastic.
If I can real quick, if you can give, Eric Tissot kind of a synopsis of, some dates, I would love to present those or talk about those at our planning commission meeting tomorrow so that people who may not have been able to attend this sustainability commission meeting will know about it. And then we can remind people when it's come, as it progresses for comments.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, and also need to shout out Jared, who's on the technical advisory committee for the climate action plan as well. So
Yeah.
quite a few sustainability commissioners involved.
Thanks, Aubrey. Are there any other questions from commissioners?
Valerie, I'm wondering if it's possible to give us any preview of the kinds of actions that we should be expecting to see. Just like one or two examples.
I'll have to pull up the list because there's 45 of them right now that we're
Or
filtering.
whatever comes top of mind.
So let me pull up the list so I'm being accurate. But there's a pretty broad range. I mean, I think the consultants came to us with a list of probably a lot longer list than that. So they do kind of run the gamut right now. So I want to make sure I'm being accurate. So let me just pull that up.
While Valerie's pulling that up too, I just want to mention that and more explicitly share that the climate action plan is going to include community-wide emissions reduction actions as well as municipal focused actions. So what can the city be doing? And so there's going to be 45 community-wide actions and 15 municipal actions specifically for things that the city owns and operates and can have more control over reducing emission sources. So just to clarify, there's quite a few that will be covered.
Thank you. All right. So, for instance, one of the community goals at the top list is require all new construction and major renovations to be solar ready and evaluation of existing roofs for additional opportunities. Things along, and then, conduct a prioritization study of analysis of how to transition city municipal buildings to net zero buildings. So that's, some examples there. So these are the ones that we're going to be putting through all of those filters though, to see, really what it comes back with as terms of best impact, what's has the least negative or, negative impacts and best co-benefits and community benefits. So we're going to be filtering all those down. There'll be 10 of those taken and put into implementation roadmaps. So they will, and as Aubrey mentioned, in the presentation, there's those two elements of being community and municipal, but even the community ones will be put through the filter, the evaluation criteria of, what the city has authority to be doing as well, just to kind of, add some weight to those. So yeah, so it goes really in different ways of different processes, different policies, and then just straight actions that we'd be looking at. Some involve incentive programs. One overarching one will be a very broad communications engagement strategy, because that's really we need everybody involved to get this to happen. So that's going to have to be a big part of the implementation of this plan, and we're really looking forward to working with the sub cabinet, but much broader group with that as well to make that happen.
Thanks, Valerie. Any other commissioners have any questions before we move to Aubrey's presentation?
I guess I do have one, or maybe it's two. Valerie, you talked a little bit about feasibility and also like the fiscal impact of these things. I guess my question is, somewhere in between those topics, is there anything that deals with leveraging or accessing funding, or how some of these things might be able to be funded without costing the city money, or like priority for like ideas that may have, funding available?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We were trying to figure out how to do that the best way with the consultants. So, that'll be thought of. It won't be as much of a filter, just because that would take a lot longer for them to analyze. But it is something that we're very strongly considering with that, because we don't want to have anything in there that's just so pie in the sky that it can't happen. But partners are really considered a part of this implementation of this plan. So, if it's reasonable to believe there's resources, that will be considered, but it won't be run through the financial analysis.
But just to complement that, there will be a section of the plan that identifies potential funding sources for various components of the plan. So that is a part of the work that will be done, is kind of better understanding, just general grant opportunities, funding opportunities, what's coming down the federal pipeline, things like that. So
exactly. Yeah, thank you.
One more thing to add on that point. I think in terms of city investments, it's also about how we leverage current investments and leverage current work that's being done across the city to align that with our climate goals, our carbon or emission reduction goals, and so on. So I think not necessarily looking at just not costing the city money, but how are we being more proactive and forward thinking with our current investments and the ways that we're allocating funds now.
Thank you. Awesome. And then my second question, along the same lines of, partnerships and things like that, you mentioned the municipal control and the citywide portion, and I love to hear the municipal part, because there's so much opportunity within what the city does control. But is there any thought towards guiding or leading the private sector in sort of, things that we can encourage the business community to do, just as a part of being, good citizens, and maybe on top of that, even, I hate to keep using the word leverage, but like, for example, economies of scale, if we can, lean on some of our institutions and even small businesses that are, interested in participating does that make it, you know, easier or more cost effective for the city to do some of these vague things that I'm not being specific about? But
Yeah, several of the, most of the actions in the community benefits do involve some element of that. You know, so there needs to be some kind of way that the city can interact with that. So, you know, for instance, there's some of the things they're looking at incentivization and programs, or, you know, potentially even requirements or things like that, that could be changing the way that business or individuals act in terms of climate resilience. So yeah, there are various elements. That's a big part. That's really where a lot of those columns of the community draft goals. You know, so that's, you know, everything from, you know, some of the suggestions. Just I'm just pulling up the sheet and grab one of the first ones I see, but is really looking at, you know, if there's is it feasible that if there's new gas stations or expansions to those, they need to include a certain amount of EV charging stations, things like that.
awesome. Thank you.
Before we move on, we had a few more folks join us. Chris Breyer, Director of Planning, do you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. I'm Chris Brown, Director of Planning, and a very proud co-worker of the Office of Sustainability.
And we also have Delegate Boyce who's joined us.
Hi, here I am. Good afternoon, Delegate Regina T. Boyce of District 40, 3A, and I'm proud Commissioner.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to move on to Aubrey just to talk about the DP3 plan.
I just gave you presenter abilities.
Can everyone hear me okay? I'm having some internet issues. My internet like just disconnected and now I'm back. So I apologize if I get cut off. Something's going on, but seems to be, am I coming through okay? All right, sounds good. All right, yes. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you all. And we talking about the city.
It might work better if you keep your camera off for this part, because you are going in and out on my end.
Let's see. Yeah, I've got some internet challenges. Am I coming through okay? And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, sounds okay. Well, thanks so much for joining tonight, everybody. So I'm Aubrey Germ. I'm the Climate and Resilience Planner for the Office of Sustainability, and I am managing that. And there's a lag, just I think with Valerie's screen as well. So one moment. There you go. Okay, so what I'm going to be chatting about this afternoon is what is the DP3? What is the planning looking like for it? What are the various opportunities for engagement, next steps in the process, and then we'll take any questions at the end. Similar to the Climate Action Plan, we are working with a consultant team on this to expand our capacity, especially technical analysis abilities, as well as expand our reach community engagement wise. So we are working with an amazing company called Tetra Tech. including Lisa Tate and Jessica Stokes as kind of the key project coordinators on Tetra Tech side. They are working on carrying out the overall planning process, providing technical support and subject matter expertise, helping with engagement and outreach materials. They're facilitating a lot of our meetings, especially the public-facing ones. We'll be drafting the plan document, and then they're also going to be helping support the plan adoption process. So what is the DP3? So the DP3 is short for the Disaster Preparedness and Planning Project, which is a mouthful. It is often shortened to just the city's Disaster Preparedness Hazard Mitigation Plan. And it's not just a hazard mitigation plan, it's also the city's climate adaptation plan. So what you heard Valerie speak about, which was our climate action plan, which is our emissions reduction strategy. So that's focused on mitigating emissions, whereas the hazard mitigation plan is focused on mitigating hazard impacts. So the effects that we're seeing of things like flooding and extreme heat from worsening and exacerbated impacts of climate change. So, both plans are very complementary to one another, but they are not the same, and they don't actually overlap all that much because one is looking at impacts and effects, and the other one is looking of emissions, and then the other one is looking at how do we reduce the emissions and Baltimore's footprint and overall contribution to climate change. So hazard mitigation, that term, when you hear that, it basically means an action that is taken to reduce or eliminate risk to life and property from a hazard event. So how do we reduce our risk from flooding? How do we reduce our risk from extreme heat and things like that, and also reduce damages and improve, reduce the overall negative externalities and consequences of events like that. No, we can't eliminate those events from happening completely, but we can reduce the harm that they cause and the overall magnitude of their impacts. And so mitigation is actually something that really helps us go in that direction of reducing harm. So FEMA has a statistic out there that says mitigation actually saves $6 for every $1 invested in mitigation actions. So that is, cost savings from reduced damages in a disaster, things like that. So Maryland as a state could save up to $100 million in overall benefits, if all of Maryland's jurisdictions actually were able to carry out and implement our hazard mitigation plans. And so you can see on the right, it's just an image of the disaster management cycle. It's what that's called. So it's everything from mitigation, where you're trying to reduce risk, preparedness, where you're trying to be more prepared to what might come. And then if and when a hazard event happens, then there's the inevitable response and recovery phases with different hazard events. So we've seen a lot of this play out in the pandemic. I think that's a very tangible event, longer term hazard, but definitely one that falls within the range of this kind of plan, and is something where everybody experienced the various aspects of the disaster management cycle within the pandemic. So just a very real example. And then overall, so hazard mitigation plans are required actually for jurisdictions to have them by FEMA. So FEMA, federal government, requires that jurisdictions have hazard mitigation plans for a number of reasons. So you can see on the left there, it's authorized by the Federal Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. They're intended to provide an overview of the impacts of natural hazards on communities. So they really are focused on natural hazards. They provide a roadmap to reducing the impact of these hazards, and they're necessary to be updated every 5 years for Baltimore City and other jurisdictions to be eligible for pre-disaster mitigation funds. So that's trying to reduce risk once again. And some certain other post-disaster recovery funds. So it's an important funding mechanism that we have the hazard mitigation plan in place because it is a prerequisite for receiving certain support from the federal government, because it shows that we are actively working to reduce risk and that we have a plan and a strategy in place. And so the priorities that FEMA kind of outlines for hazard mitigation plans are that it addresses climate change. So not just natural hazards, but also climate change. So it looks at projected impacts. So looking down the road, what's going to be getting worse because of climate change. as well as future changes, equity, building codes, high hazard potential dams, which are very significant risks in a lot of communities, and then also integration across other FEMA programs, such as the National Flood Insurance Program and community rating system programs. So these are all elements that are very intentionally going to be included in Baltimore's hazard mitigation plan. And overall too, Baltimore's hazard mitigation plan over the years has actually been seen as a best practice across FEMA for jurisdiction climate action, climate adaptation plus hazard mitigation plan. So it's been setting a precedent for a while now on kind of best practices for jurisdiction hazard mitigation plan. So the goals of the plan: protect health, safety, welfare, prevent damage, build resilience and disaster prevention, enhance the city's adaptive capacity to cope, promote awareness and education around these risks and how to be more prepared, and then also to have Baltimore become an even higher rated community rating system, classified community, which is a lot of words, but basically means that Baltimore is a pretty flood prepared community. And we have to go through a process called the CRS process every couple of years to assess Baltimore's readiness and preparedness around flooding. And the more prepared we are around that, and the more our flood risk is reduced, residents who have flood insurance policies through the National Flood Insurance Program receive discounts on their flood insurance policies. So currently, Baltimore is a Class 5 CRS rating, which means residents get a 25% discount on their flood insurance policies. And if we are even higher rated CRS classified community, those discounts would even be higher. So the identified hazards from the 2018 DP3, which was the last plan, which is the one that's currently the plan for the city, identified flooding, coastal hazards, precipitation variability, wind, extreme heat, and land as the kind of high hazards in Baltimore as far as natural hazards go. And as you can imagine, a lot of these things are going to become worse and even have more potentially devastating consequences on the city due to climate change and infrastructure aging. And so some new features for this 2023 update, which again is the 5-year update that is necessary for FEMA, is that we're going to be including updated hazard data, climate science, and new GIS maps, which will hopefully be useful for a lot of just planning purposes and informational purposes. There's going to be an improved focus and granularity of data around socially vulnerable populations. We're going to have a lot of updated critical facilities data. We're going to be restructuring some of the hazard categories, including dam data. We'll be including actually priority human caused hazards this time. So we've seen a lot of different human caused hazards significantly affect the city that also should involve some long range planning around. So we're going to be including some human caused hazards like cyber terrorism and hazardous material spills. We're going to be expanding actions that were identified in Chapter 6 of the last plan, such as how to build stronger food resilient systems, how to build stronger and more resilient food systems in Baltimore. A lot of the mitigation actions in the plan are going to be rewritten and reprioritized. And then there's going to be a high-level financial analysis performed for priority actions. And then there's going to be a section that demonstrates how the hazard mitigation plan is integrated with some of the other plans, like climate action plan that's being updated, the comprehensive plan, the solid waste management plan, etc. And on the right there, you can see in the 2018 plan update, we kind of conducted a survey in anticipation that we were going to include human caused hazards in this plan update in 2023. And so you can see we got a baseline understanding of residents and where they felt, how they were concerned about different human caused hazards. Because again, human caused hazards had never been included in the plan before. So this is kind of what we saw as far as people's concerns. And I'll be going into the planning process now and kind of where we are and what it's looking like. So this is kind of the planning process cycle for traditional hazard mitigation plans. So organizing resources, gathering data, putting together the project teams and the structure and the advisory committees, all of that, which we are past. And then now we're in the kind of conducting risk assessment phase, as well as in community engagement and public involvement strategy. And at the same time, we are actually developing the mitigation strategy kind of concurrently. Then we'll be moving into establishing a plan maintenance schedule, reviewing and adopting the plan, and then ultimately implementing the plan. And it's public outreach and community engagement is continuous through this cycle, and that's a key piece to all of this work. So the project structure for this plan update is we have a core planning team, which meets every other week and serves as kind of the guiding team to develop the structure of the planning project, discuss the status of things, support data gathering, troubleshooting issues, informing the development of the Hazard Mitigation Advisory Committee, reviewing materials, and also reviewing drafts. And this includes folks from Office of Emergency Management, which are our key partners on this plan update, the Department of Public Works, and Department of Health, and a few others. And then our Hazard Mitigation Advisory Committee is composed of stakeholders from across disciplines, as well as a lot of subject matter experts in this space. It's not just city representatives, but also regional. So we've got some members from federal and state government, as well as other entities on this advisory committee, which is really helpful. So we know disasters don't stop at Baltimore city-county line. So they're going to be providing input on the guidance and development of the plan, and helping ensure that community needs and concerns are included in the plan as well. We have a social equity committee, which is still being formed. We're still inviting some members to it to convene to discuss more in depth different vulnerabilities in Baltimore, and then help make sure that the actions in the plan and the way that they're developed and prioritized center the community and social equity. And then our community stakeholders and general public, so engaging all sorts of stakeholders in the public engagement opportunities throughout the process. So just another kind of visual of all these key partners, the core planning team, the HMAC, as we call the Hazard Mitigation Advisory Committee stakeholders, and then, of course, Maryland Department of Emergency Management and FEMA, who are the ultimate reviewers of the plan, and the ones who kind of can give the okay for the plan to be formally adopted. And then here's the overall timeline for this plan update. So it really kicked off in February, and will be completed by the end of November / early December. So it's a fairly quick turnaround time. But, you know, again, we have to meet that 5-year deadline, which is December 20th, 2023, because the 2018 DP3 was approved in December 20th of 2018. So that this plan has to be adopted and approved by both FEMA and the city before then. So that is the strict timeline. You can see where we are with the yellow dotted line there. You know, we're in May, we've got a decent bit to go, but we still have a lot to cover in these next couple of months. Most notably, you'll see that you know, there's a lot of analysis work and plan development work that's ongoing that our technical consultants are supporting, but at the same time, there's a lot of work that's been ongoing with the various public involvement processes. We're going to be having a number of public meetings coming up. We had our kickoff public meeting in May, and then we'll be having a couple more public meetings in June and July as well. So various opportunities for engagement for this plan. Overall, the kind of key components are public meetings and workshops, outreach at community events, updates to our website, keeping that accurate and updated, social media posts, and we're going to have a story map very soon, which is basically an interactive tool and website that shows, that has a lot of images, and kind of demonstrates Baltimore City's experience with hazard events and what that means for our vulnerable populations. And then we also have a number of surveys that we're also sharing online and dropping off places like senior centers with hard copies for those who don't have strong digital access. So right now, these are kind of the three main ways to get involved with or share your input right now. And then we're going to have, like I said, some more public meetings coming up that I'll share more about. So the public survey is the survey that we want all residents who engage with it to be able to take and share your input. We have a stakeholder survey, which is geared towards city agencies, nonprofit partners, businesses, and other institutions. That kind of is more geared towards how hazards in Baltimore affect your operations or affect your ability to run your business or run your nonprofit. And so stakeholder survey is more on the, if you represent an entity or an institution like that. So we really highly recommend you taking that or sharing that as well. And then checking our webpage for upcoming meetings and more. So some next steps, take and share the surveys, attend the DP3 community engagement events. The next one is going to be at the open house. We're going to integrate it into the open house. So we'll have kind of a workshop opportunity there. And again, as others mentioned, that's Wednesday, June 21st at Morgan State University. Then we're going to be having another workshop in early July and then one in late July. And then we encourage you to engage with the story map, which is coming soon. And then comment on the draft plan. So the draft plan is anticipated to be ready for viewing in August, and that will be posted on Conveo, which is the city's common platform for posting draft plans that can be easily commented on and engaged with. And then we'll also be doing a public briefing to the Planning Commission during the public comment period in August as well. So we'll be working with Eric Tiso to make sure that we get on that agenda. And then the big kind of one is that we'll need to, for this plan, because it's on such a tight timeline, we'll need to be able to get on the agenda for the November Planning Commission meeting, because that's the one that is right before when the kind of expiry date of our 2018 DP3 is. And so the timing is just really critical there. So we'll make sure to be proactive about getting on the agendas and also sharing the draft plan and the final plan versions with you all well in advance, so that you have time to review them and provide comments and feedback and any thoughts there. And so we'll also make sure that we keep the Sustainability Commission updated as well during the public comment period and the final plan period as well. And then you can always email me with any comments, questions, or any input that you have as well throughout this process. And that is all from me. Any questions?
Aubrey, that is absolutely comprehensive and fantastic. I'm really excited to see all of the elements of equity that have been added to this plan. And I just wanted to thank you and the entire team for pulling something together that's so comprehensive. Not a question, more of a statement.
Thank you, Mia. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Do any other commissioners have any questions about the plan? Sean?
Aubrey, have you been able to quantify the savings for our residences and businesses that have property located in a floodplain that are saving 25% on their insurance?
That's a great question. I believe Bruna, our coastal resources planner, and Joe, our floodplain manager, have run some numbers on kind of what that looks like overall. So that's a question that they might have more of a direct detailed answer to. I'm just not sure what that number looks like, but yeah, there is quite some significant cost savings overall for those in flood prone areas. And I believe it's a 25% discount for those that are in the floodplain, like the regulatory floodplain. And then for those who have insurance policies who are outside the floodplain but still choose to do so, because as we know in Baltimore, there's a lot of areas that flood that are not within the regulatory floodplain. So being insured and reducing individual property owner risk is still really important. So they do a lot of outreach around that. And I believe there is still a 10% discount for those that purchase the policies that are outside of the regulatory floodplain. So cumulatively, it's pretty significant. So yeah, I think I could find that out, kind of what the more detailed answer is. I don't know, Amy or Ava, if you guys happen to know. But
I just put in the chat what had been put in the 2022 annual report.
Oh, there we go.
was
Perfect. That number was calculated.
800,000.
800,000 annually.
Okay. Because one of the things that we were hearing when we passed the last one 5 years ago was concern from the commercial real estate group that there was concerns about, these additional regulations that are imposed on either adaptive reuse or new construction are, costing me X. My reply was, yeah, that's okay, because now you're saving Y in your insurance. And it would really be good to have numbers to put out back with this when we make public announcements saying, Baltimoreans are saving $800,000 on insurance.
Yeah. That's a really wonderful point. And then to Lisa, I think Lisa provided a complimentary point in the chat saying, can I repeat though the statistic about how mitigation saves $6 for everyone invested? So that's another cost saving statistic. That's a general kind of really overarching number, but FEMA basically has done studies that show that for every $1 invested in mitigation, so in risk reduction, in things like, improving flood safety, reducing flood risk, education and awareness, major infrastructure projects that reduce risk, that it saves jurisdictions $6, or at least has $6 worth of avoided damages or avoided costs. So that's a really important statistic to also keep in mind and justify further investment in risk mitigation measures, because Baltimore hasn't experienced a major hurricane, for example, in a number of years, but we had some near misses with ones that hit North Carolina, ones that went north and hit New York City and New Jersey. So we have to really be aware that just because some really major consequential events haven't happened here to that extreme, that if still investing in mitigation measures that would reduce the risk and damages if those things did happen in Baltimore, and I don't want to say when, but if and when those things happen, that we will, be reducing those future costs that would need to be put towards recovery, which is really, really expensive. And so just, something to keep in mind always, that we need to be constantly working towards risk reduction and mitigation, and building resilience, building a more resilient city in all of this. That's at the core of it. So not just the infrastructure considerations, but also the social and economic.
Aubrey, I'm really struck that what you're basically saying through the lens of this plan you're doing and these studies is that taking care of people is efficient. Not only the right thing to do and humane, but efficient. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, and then Nicolette just upped that and said now the new statistic is that it saves $9 on recovery and avoided damages. So thank you. As of 2020. Okay, so that's a newer number. Thanks, Nicolette. But yeah, the more social resilience that we have, and including kind of what Valerie was talking about, the climate action plan, kind of we're trying to do is address social cohesion as a benefit to implementing some of these actions. It's just overall a lot of social benefits to building resilience at a local level, community level, all of that to your point, Miriam, is really also complementary to, but also the key to broader hazard mitigation infrastructure work. So both things have to be happening at the same time. And there is a lot of vulnerability here in Baltimore, and not just climate hazard, but also economic, social, we have a lot of isolated populations. So there's just a lot here that, we really need to be continuing to move forward. And the fact that the hazard mitigation plan has to be updated every 5 years. I remember, Sean, we brought this in front of you just 5 years ago, but it keeps, bringing it to the forefront of conversations. And I think just keeping that in mind is really important, because it's just, we got to keep working towards these things. So.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Great. Aubrey, thank you very much. We're going to move on to Sarah to talk about the comprehensive plan.
And I just passed the
looks like
presenter ability to you, so that should be coming through.
Sarah, if you're speaking, we can't hear you yet.
I think you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's very slow. All right. So I am happy to present an update on where we are with the city's comprehensive plan. So we're going to zoom out a little bit from looking at plans that are in the realm of sustainability and look at the overall comprehensive plan for the city of Baltimore, which does include some sustainability elements and also links to lots of other plans that are happening in the city, both of the plans that you just heard about, as well as plans that the Department of Recreation and Parks is working on a master plan for their agency. Baltimore Development Corporation recently completed a plan. Housing and Community Development is embarking on a housing plan. And so all of those are within the umbrella of all of those and other plans are within the umbrella of the city's comprehensive plan. So just to begin, I want to talk a little bit about what is our Baltimore. We're calling the comprehensive plan our Baltimore, and why is it important? We are updating the comprehensive plan that was last done in 2006. So there were updates since 2006, but this is the first time we're doing kind of a completely new comprehensive plan since then. This is a requirement of the State Department of Planning, and they have updated the cycle for doing updates to the comprehensive plan to align with the census. And so we're doing this comprehensive plan following the 2020 census, and it will be a 10-year plan, whereas previously it was on a 6-year cycle. The focus of this plan is really on the spaces and places and neighborhoods that make Baltimore home. So this is really a land use and about the physical places within the city. As we've done engagement, people are interested in talking about lots of other things, and we'll include some of those, but it really is primarily focused on spaces and places. So as I mentioned, this is a requirement. Every jurisdiction across the state of Maryland is required to do a comprehensive plan following the decennial census. And there are certain elements that are required by the state, but we also enjoy a lot of flexibility about how we go about pursuing the comprehensive plan. Aubrey mentioned that for the DP3, that a story map is going to be part of the planning process, and Baltimore County has just released the draft of their comprehensive plan, and they used a story map. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I would encourage you to check that out and see kind of what is shaping up for the Baltimore County comprehensive plan. The plan is required to be submitted to the State Department of Planning by the end of 2024. We are expecting to be complete prior to the end of 2024, but we will be going through the approval process during the first half of 2024. The plan does go for approval by both the Planning Commission as well as the City Council. And then in addition to meeting the requirement from the State Department of Planning, the city charter locally requires the Planning Commission to adopt and revise a master plan. So we're really kind of meeting both of those requirements together through this planning process. And this plan is really building on the mayor's action plan. So one of the pillars of the mayor's action plan was equitable neighborhood development. And the idea is that this plan will guide equitable neighborhood development over the next 10 years and hopefully beyond. And so it will address how to make Baltimore an inviting place for people to want to stay, to benefit from staying, and then also to grow the city so that people want to invite friends and family to live in Baltimore, but really thinking about retention as kind of a key strategy for ultimately growing the city's population. In terms of the building blocks for the comprehensive plan, we really are building on the existing plans that have been recently completed, as well as the plans that are underway kind of as we're going through this planning process, such as the ones you heard about earlier. Also, obviously, using the 2020 census results as one of the foundational pieces to inform this plan. And then, as I just mentioned, the mayor's action plan, and particularly the pillar related to equitable neighborhood development. And then I guess the foundation cornerstone to all of this is community engagement. So in terms of our planning process, we really started that engagement last spring. With the first phase of the planning process being the listening phase. We really wanted to set the stage for the planning process and establish what the vision was and what the topics were. Because we have so much flexibility in terms of what the topics are, we wanted to hear from residents what resonated with them. So we are using some guidance from the American Planning Association in terms of best practices for plans. But we know that some of those things are going to be more relevant to Baltimore City, and some of those things may be relevant elsewhere, but not resonate with residents here. And so we did a lot of engagement to really understand what the priority topics were. From there, in the fall, we moved into brainstorming recommendations, and I'll talk a little bit more about kind of how we've gone through each of these stages. But we wanted to hear from residents, what were their ideas, and so we held sessions across the city to generate ideas in terms of recommendations. And now this year, we're moving into the drafting and reviewing stage as we start putting pen to paper to write the plan. So taking you back again to last spring and summer, we held a series of open houses. You may have had an opportunity to attend those, where we asked people to generate their vision for the city, to prioritize and generate priority topics, to engage with us on some data and maps that we had generated. We really got lots of great feedback through those sessions held in different parts of the city. We also worked with engagement partners. So we had about 20 engagement partners across the city that were really doing grassroots engagement with stakeholders that they work with on a daily basis. So some of them are focused on particular demographics. Maybe they work with youth, they work with immigrants, they work with seniors. Other engagement partners worked in particular parts of the city. They might have worked in Southwest Baltimore, West Baltimore, Southeast. And so by partnering with those engagement partners, we were able to reach a lot of people who were not going to necessarily come out on a Tuesday night and come to an open house. We wanted to really engage with lots of different audiences. We also tried a new approach of working with storytelling ambassadors. So we had a storytelling expert that we brought on board who provided training for people who were interested in participating in this. And people were able to host storytelling spaces and collect stories from their friends and neighbors. And then we had an online engagement as well. So there's people who may not want to come out to a meeting, but they're happy to participate in a planning process from their phone or from their computer. And so we wanted to make sure people had that opportunity as well. And so once we had, from that spring engagement, a list of priority topics, then we started in the fall to brainstorm recommendations around those topics. So as I mentioned, we held work sessions in each of the planning districts, and we had different priority topics that were featured at each of those work sessions so that people could really dive in and, you could attend the one in Northwest and talk about public safety. You could attend the one in Northeast and talk about affordable housing. So people had an opportunity to attend something that was close to their heart in terms of a topic or close to their neighborhood, something that was, in their planning district. We held work sessions with people who had particular expertise around a topic or a particular interest. So we wanted to make sure that we got those institutional stakeholders, whether that was nonprofits or practitioners or people who have really kind of dived into a topic. We held work sessions with those stakeholders as well. And then we had a community conference last December where we had a day-long event where we had all the different priority topics and held sessions to brainstorm on all of them. So there was a great opportunity to kind of cross-fertilize between all of the topics. And then throughout the process, we have been posting the recommendations that we've been collecting online, and people have an opportunity to provide feedback, see the feedback that other people have offered, generate additional ideas as well. And so now we're ready to move into the drafting and reviewing stage. And so we're taking all of the information that we collected in the brainstorming stage and starting to put this into the plan document. So we're going to have a set of policy recommendations around the priority topics that we have been looking at. We're also going to have a section of the plan really focused on planning for retention and growth. So I mentioned at the beginning that this is largely about land use. We are going to have a proposed land use map in the comprehensive plan. This is something that's kind of standard across comprehensive plans, and yet it wasn't really necessarily kind of the highlighted feature of the last comprehensive plan. So we want to use this as something that will really be guiding future rezonings in Baltimore City, which is going to be a transition from how things have happened in the past. In that section, we will also be talking about a bunch of the different strategies the city has for retention, the middle neighborhood strategy, talk about growth strategies such as the impact investment areas and the work that the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Planning Department have been doing with neighborhoods in those areas. We talk about the new housing market typology, talk about opportunities to identify where new construction can occur, looking at where the zoning has capacity for new construction, as well as where there's demand. So we have a market study that's looked at where there's demand and kind of marrying those two pieces of analysis to highlight opportunities for new construction. So those are some of the elements that we're anticipating for that section. And then we want to highlight some geographic areas in the city. So we want to be able to highlight things like what's been going on and is continuing to go on in the Middle Branch, what's happening in West Baltimore with the Reconnecting West Baltimore initiative around the highway to nowhere, the Greenway Trail, the 35-mile loop trail around the city. So we want to be able to highlight those types of planning efforts, planning for downtown and state center, those types of things. So here's kind of a preview for you of the policy recommendations that we are looking to include, and this really mirrors for the most part, the guidance from the American Planning Association, and also mirrors the way that you will see Baltimore County's plan organized, because they followed that same guidance. And so we think the alignment between sister jurisdictions really makes a lot of sense. So we have topics related to livable places, thinking about affordable housing and vacant housing. One of the things that came up from our community engagement partners is the importance of public spaces and placemaking, and really having kind of those spaces for community. I think with COVID, that became even more important to have kind of those communal spaces in neighborhoods and make sure that we are building those spaces and providing opportunities for, I think Aubrey or Valerie was talking about social cohesion. So having kind of physical spaces for that. One of the other policy recommendation sections will be focused on access. So this is kind of traditional access in terms of public transit, but also thinking about access to food, access to digital resources. We're having this meeting online right now, but not everyone necessarily has access to these types of resources. So increasing digital access. And then access to green spaces, which we know are very important for well-being. We will have a section related to building an inclusive economy, and this is largely building off of the Baltimore Together plan, looking at growth sectors, looking at neighborhood retail, looking at small business ecosystem. But we're also looking at workforce development. This was something that was a huge priority as we did our public engagement last year. And then freight movement as well as an opportunity for jobs and thinking about kind of the land use implications of freight movement. And then last, but certainly not least, is the section on healthy communities. And we have some of the topics that I think relate to the plans that you heard about earlier here. We have public health disparities that we're really focusing. I freeze, can you hear me still? Public health disparities that's really focusing on extreme heat. And then we also have environmental justice, thinking about neighborhood cleanliness, thinking about trees and forests, and then also design for public safety. I think I already mentioned some of these different elements that we're looking at for the section related to planning for retention and growth. We are really excited to share with people a proposed land use map and get comments. And we would welcome the help of both commissions in helping to promote that and help us get feedback on those. And then these are some of the examples in terms of places that we want to highlight in the section related to area planning. So Perkins Somerset Old Town, our Inspire planning, which is planning around the 21st century schools, a couple that I didn't mention earlier. And then this is our website, which I think Amy posted in the chat, and I'm happy to take any questions.
You're off mute, which means that you should probably go first.
Who, me?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, thank you, great job. I look forward to also presenting this at the Planning Commission as soon as possible to give everybody an update on where you are. So you're gonna have a land use map.
Yes.
Okay. So you understand the legal requirement for consistency between a land use map and a rezoning. And we just need to be very, very careful how we draft that land use map. Because our zoning is very, it's very granular. The land use maps are typically very general. If I have a big, forgive me for big yellow area for residential, but the granular zoning has a lot of, sprinkled commercial and so on and so forth. Someone comes in to rezone a piece of yellow to a piece of red or blue, or whatever. It has to be consistent with the land use plan or Maryland law. And so we need to make sure that that relationship remains flexible for the granularity of Baltimore City. So, that's
So that is something that I think we would welcome feedback on. So we have at this point thought about kind of the categories for the proposed land use map and thought about them in terms of some mixed use categories as well, kind of to, I think, maybe part of where you're going, right? So that they wouldn't just be categories that say residential or just commercial. There would be some of those, but that there would be kind of these mixed use categories as well. But we, in the early stages of the engagement, thought that we might be able to get feedback just by looking at an existing land use map and asking people to kind of give us comments, that we really didn't get a lot of feedback. So the approach we're taking at this point is to go ahead and draft a proposed land use map, put it out there, have a legend that kind of maps out how the generalized land use map would tie into future zoning categories, future zoning recommendations, and then ask people for feedback. And so that feedback could be both in terms of the categories as well as in terms of like specific map feedback. And we would welcome that. So yes, we're excited to be putting this forward, and we do want to make that that relationship clear to everyone. One of the ideas, I don't know if Stephanie is still on the call, but one of the ideas that we had was to work with the Planning Academy alumni to help us engage people in taking a look at the proposed land use map and help kind of talk to other residents about it, because all of the Planning Academy alumni have kind of been through discussions about land use and would kind of understand the importance of it, whereas maybe it looks a little academic to many people, right? And sort of, why should I care about it now? But they might care about it when something comes up in their neighborhood, several years from now.
I like the idea of the land use map. I mean, all of our other surrounding jurisdictions, they have a very strong land use map because they have a lot of undeveloped property versus the city. I think we just, and I think it will help our businesses and residents understand, this macro level relationships of uses and so on. I think we just need to be very careful about the specificity.
I hear you. And maybe we can share with you the legends sooner than later, so we can get your feedback on that. I can do that. Yeah.
I've got two other comments. I don't want to hog the conversation, but real quickly, Baltimore County, how they rolled out their draft plan for comment, the storyboard, it was very, very nice. It was really, really difficult to comment on. So if you're going to have a storyboard, an interactive storyboard, that's fine, but please also provide like a PDF version that somebody can download. I'm sorry, I'm an old guy that likes to print stuff out and redline it and hand it back to somebody. That would be really, really helpful. It was impossible for me for Baltimore County to provide meaningful comment on that.
So I don't think we're planning to use Story Map. I was just mentioning because I think Aubrey mentioned that they're using a Story Map. We will use Conveyo for comments, which is a PDF format that allows you to comment, directly on whatever section of the plan, so we can see exactly what you're commenting on. You can pinpoint, the paragraph or the word that you want to comment on.
But also have a PDF version that I could just download and print out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Conveyo allows that. Yep, absolutely.
Because I always like to flip, personally, I just flip back and forth between sections to make sure that they're consistent. It's really difficult on a web-based platform. Yep. And then lastly, there are a ton of other reports. You list a bunch of them. I really like, policy recommendations where you're going. In as much as we can feed in the recommendations and whatnot from all of those other reports, DPW's solid waste program and the green network plan, everything else, into those policy recommendations to provide the connections so that we're not in different silos. The comprehensive plan can put its arm around all of those, Baltimore together. There's so many great plans out there. The comprehensive plan has the opportunity to really tie all those together in a comprehensive way. So
we are aiming to tie them together, but probably at a high level and then referencing those plans for the details. So we're not going to be repeating kind of the details from those plans. But yes, we do want to provide those links.
If you have a recommendation and that recommendation is consistent with 4 other plans, it would be really good to identify, per those other plans as well, so that people could recognize this is a unifying theme between a variety of different agencies and whatnot throughout the city. So, I'll shut up now.
That's very helpful. I'm actually working on a template for agencies to fill out, so I can add that piece to it.
Regina?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks so much, and thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask a point of clarity from a planning perspective. I'm not a planner, just a little resident of the city. But you started the presentation about this. This is something that we're doing because it's also something we haven't done in a long time, and it's also required by the state. But you started it as a way of planning and also planning so folks can come to Baltimore, or want to come to live in Baltimore, be in Baltimore. And I sometimes question, when we plan, why aren't we planning for residents that are already here, businesses that are already here? Because if it doesn't work for the people who are already here, then it shouldn't really work for anybody who wants to come here. And so from a planning perspective, do we plan kind of a ground up? Like if it's not work, I live in Waverly. If it's not working in Waverly, how does it work in Waverly? Because if I'm the best seller of Baltimore is the people who already live here. And if it doesn't work for me, if I'm not happy, then how do I then decide I'm going to plan a city for other people to come into? So it's just a thought or question.
I may not have said it right, but that's what you're saying is exactly the intention, is to really plan for people who are existing residents, so that they want to stay and benefit from staying, and we make things work for people who are here, and then that will that might lead to growth. But the point is that you're planning for people who are existing residents. And I apologize if I didn't
that must
say
have
that
been
clearly,
me.
but that is really the intention.
Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Or comments? Pausing just to make sure people have time to find the unmute button. So at this point, we can open it up to public comment for any of the plans that you have here. I believe that everyone is still on the line. You can also, we have a question that was in the chat very early on. It was very specific to, I can't seem to scroll up to find it, but it was Samia's question.
And Mia, I got the person's email address and I copied those questions into my email so that I can follow up with specifics later, just because I know what those questions refer to, but I need to pull from some of our documentation on the progress of the sustainability actions to be able to answer well.
Thank you. That's great. Are there any other questions or comments?
I just want to say it is always inspiring to see the level of detail, the level of outreach, the level of analysis that goes into working on all these issues and building us. And I really appreciate that.
So hearing no other comments or questions, Amy, I'll let you close it out with next steps.
Sure. So, next steps, just as far as so everyone's clear on upcoming meeting schedules, the Planning Commission has their next meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the front boardroom of the Planning Department. The Sustainability Commission will not have a regular June meeting, but in place of the June meeting, we'll have our annual open house. It'll be at Morgan State University's Business School in the atrium. And I think a few times in the chat, I've shared the link to where you can register for that and receive the specific instructions as far as the where to go and the information. Thank you that the different activities and things that we'll have available at the open house. And then the next regular meeting of the Sustainability Commission will be July 19th. And so we'll get that information shared out. We're looking to try to move to a hybrid format once the technology is set up in the planning boardroom to be able to have folks there in the boardroom in person and also have folks who want to attend virtually be able to attend that way as well.
Thanks, Amy. Before we adjourn the meeting totally, I just want to thank the entire department for putting everything together so that we could jointly take a look and have some things to consider for the future and some action steps to take right now. Sean, do you have anything that you want to say in closing?
No, I want to thank you, Mia and Miriam, for inviting the commission to Amy and the entire planning staff for pulling everything together so nicely. 3 great presentations. I really look forward to continuing our collaboration. There's so much that we can do together. It's been too long since the last one. Hopefully we can start everything back like we were talking about before the damn pandemic. But thank you very much.
Thank you. And Miriam, do you have anything before we close?
No, I do not, Mia.
All right. Well, thank you all. See you in June at the open house. Have a great night. Meeting adjourned.